back to another edition of the Michigan Lacrosse Review. My name is Greg Norman, your host. And we're going to check in with the second part of the Michigan Intercollegiate Athletic Association men's lacrosse preview. Games get underway here and then this weekend and then the next week. So we thought we would finish up with the four schools. We get a chance to talk to the folks at Kalamazoo College. Adrian, certainly we're going to run up and have a conversation at Alma, and we're going to finish off with Mike Shannels at home. So we'll get that going here in a couple of seconds. And this, again, is part two. And in a week or so, we'll bring you some of the action of the NAI schools, and we're going to keep track of exactly who plays where and a little bit of flavor for collegiate, both NAI and Division III this year. So we hope you'll stay tuned. We'll be back in a second. Welcome back to the 2024 MIAA Men's Lacrosse Preview for the Michigan Lacrosse Review. My name is Greg Norman. We're talking with Zach Cameron, who's a brand new coach at Alma College. And first of all, thanks for taking the time. And you've got your work cut out for you this year.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for having me on, Greg. And I know it's been a blast so far, though. I mean, the kids are ready to work, and I've been loving my time at Alma so far.
Well, let's start with your background. You're a Saline graduate, played in one of the better programs around the state, certainly. You're also 7 years experienced as an assistant coach at Kalamazoo.
Yep.
And so you've been around the MIAA a ton. So obviously Alma made a really good choice in picking you. No conference wins last year, kind of a tough season at 2-11. But you have 16 of your 23 roster players at the moment. They're all freshmen or sophomores, including 10 freshmen. So you must have been pretty busy in the last 6, 8, 10 months of whenever you started. So the easiest question to start with is you've done some preseason work. So talk a little bit about where you are and what's going to happen here in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, definitely. One thing about this team too, just to start out with, is the guys are hungry. The guys want to work. They want to get better. With me being the third coach in 3 years, last year a lot of guys felt like they didn't learn much. So they're ready to get out there and work hard. So for a lot of the guys, even the older ones, we kind of had to start from like square one pretty much. So that alone kind of got everyone on the same page. So in the fall, I'll be honest, it was a little rough to start out. We needed a lot of work in the fall, but guys put the work in the fall. In the off season, they all went and hit the wall a lot. Guys just going out shooting all the time. I would just be walking by the field, and you would see like 10 of our guys just out there shooting with the goalies, and it's getting better. So from where we were at the start of the fall to now, it's day and night different. It's like, I mean, we have talent. It's like you can tell that guys care, guys want to get better, and guys are lacrosse players now. I mean, it's crazy to see. I was shocked that our team was where it is now, just from when we started in the fall. So I'm excited about it, and I think we're, might make a little bit of noise in MIAA, which might be a surprise for some guys.
Okay. It's hard to have a college team with 17 guys in the rosters because you can't even scrimmage, to some extent. And I get that part of it, but it's also a small campus. So part of that same discussion is you're able to take advantage of what's on campus. And I'm sure that some of the recruiting probably went to other places, other, football players, some of those kinds of things. And there's nothing better than an athletic football player who can play defensive midi, because really all he's got to do is stay in front of somebody.
Exactly.
And those are the opportunities. You were really part of the resurgence at Kalamazoo. They've in the last 5 or 6 years, they've kind of really built themselves up into one of the better contenders in the league to go up against the Albions and certainly the Hope College guys. You were part of that. What do you know now as a head coach that you didn't know as an assistant coach?
Man, it's probably all the background work. There's a lot more that goes on in the background, away from the field. When I was an assistant coach, I was also a server at Hopcat in Grand Rapids. So, that was my other job that I was working all the time. Now being a head coach, obviously there's going to be a lot more that I got to do just day in, day out for the whole team, for the actual campus itself. I'm the game manager for the men's soccer team at Alma. So also little details too. But honestly, Coach Redco did a great job, preparing me for a lot of it too. And even just getting the job and just, getting me prepared too. He answered a lot of my questions. So, I can't really say there's not much that I was too surprised about, just because he did such a good job, just, getting me prepared. And, I'm not the only head coach. We had Ty, who also came through Kalamazoo too. And I know Kalamazoo has been a good development spot for a lot of coaches.
You also have a Grand Valley pedigree, so Tim Murray is a part of that discussion, certainly.
Yep.
Tim did at Division II what maybe John Paul had done in Michigan.
Oh yeah.
in terms of club programs. The club programs in general are not the strength they were 10 years ago. And I think that's the advent of NAIA teams providing opportunities, and certainly the MIAA getting better.
Yep.
The MIAA nationally is getting a reputation that it might not have had 5 years ago. So speak to that a little bit. You're building a new program, but you're building it in the confines of pretty tough competition.
Oh yeah. Well, Alma's had history of success too. I mean, Alma multiple times has made it to the conference championship. Hasn't won one yet, but the fact that we've been there is awesome. And we have a good building block. Our athletic staff and the school itself supports, just athletics so much that it's crazy. We're about to have a brand new indoor field house too. So we'll be, the only team with one of those. And everyone that comes to campus loves it. So we're in a good spot. I mean, guys, every recruit we find on campus loves the team. So I'm actually, I'm very optimistic about where we'll be, especially once guys see our facilities, the brand new turf field we have. Once we get that field house finished too, we're going to be a good spot. We're going to be competitive just with what we have for athletics. And when you have a campus where over 60% of the students are athletes, people got stuff that are in common with you too. So, recruits love it. So I actually think we're in a good spot where, sure, we might have a rough year or two just with me being a new coach coming in and getting my foothold in the recruiting game, but we got what, every athlete wants. So I think we'll be in a decent spot.
You an offense or defensive guy?
So I coached both at Kalamazoo for a little bit. I played D-mid mostly at Grand Valley, but I've always been an offensive-minded guy. So if I had the choice, I would always coach offense. I was lucky that my assistant coach right now too is a great defensive coach. So I get to coach what I want, and he gets to coach what he wants. So this year works perfectly, but I'm comfortable either way.
Okay, I asked a question because talking with the Calvin coach yesterday, he's a goalie by trade.
Yep.
And I got the standard answer. I coach both sides of the ball. I said, but when you're laying bed at night, what do you? I was a goaltender growing up, but I'm an offensive guy. I could not think about defense at all. That's something sometimes we can't. We have to serve a lot of masters, and I understand that part. But in your heart, you obviously are an offensive guy.
Oh yeah, I always throughout high school, even in college when I was in transition and everything, I was thinking like, okay, where can I be to help us score? That's everything. Every thought was that. So 100% offense.
Strength wise for the Scots this year, offense better than defense. What are you going to lean on? And maybe just kind of give us some highlights of what you expect early in the season when you open up against. In fact, this coming Saturday, if I'm not mistaken, against University of Michigan Dearborn. Are you opening up at home or are you down at the field house in Detroit?
We're at the field house in Detroit.
Okay.
So, which surprisingly the weather would have actually been fine to be outside, which normally isn't the case, but yeah, no. So
you don't know that in October when you're scheduling, right?
Exactly. And
so talk to us a little bit about your offense and defense.
Yeah. So this year, I mean, we have more I would say we have more depth on defense right now, especially if the new guy is joining. We just have less experience on defense right now. So we're a young group. We have one senior poll. The rest are, freshmen or sophomores. So we're definitely a young group on the defense. But like I said, we have guys that are very hungry. One of our sophomores was starting D-mid last year and it's a natural pole. And he's one of our best poles. I'm shocked he wasn't playing pole last year for the team because he could definitely help them there. But so we have good talent defense. We're just definitely younger. Where on the offensive end, we have a lot more experience. We have a lot older guys, but we also have some guys too that, we're playing mostly defense who have made the transition to an offensive player who've all been looking really good, but obviously have some, knowledge to learn. But then we also have one of our football guys who's a 24-year-old ex-military guy who came in, played football, and is now an attackman, played at Heartland. And I remember hearing his name and watching him in high school. And even then I heard that name, I was like, oh, Nico, I know that kid. And I talked to a football coach, he's like, he's 24, right? I'm like, that makes a lot. That's where I know him from. It's from back then. So, and he's lights out. He's a good leader. He's a quieter guy, but just, the pose, like he's just so calm at any situation that we can put him in that it kind of just helps the offense too. We just, just seeing that, oh, Nico's fine. Sweet. We're in a good spot. So, and he's going to help us a lot. He's going to be really good for us this year. So
it gives you the one battleship to build something around when you get
exactly
into a tight game. You can at least, there's nothing worse than not having, you want everybody to be equal, but at the end of the day, if you got at least the one battleship that you can sort of count on to give you at least a good opportunity. What does success for you this year in the MIAA look like?
Yeah, so honestly, the number one goal for me is I just want to see our guys improve. Like I said before, coming from a team that feels like they didn't learn anything last year to now, if we can just improve and just kind of build that confidence, I want our guys to enjoy playing lacrosse, enjoy having fun, and just being around that sport still. That's the biggest goal for me. But like I said, we have talent and we are going to win games this year. There's multiple games on our schedule that are good matchups for us, and we're in a good spot to especially do better than 2 wins than we did last year. So honestly, like I said, we might make some noise in the MIAA too, but that's my big number one goal is, if we can beat the 2 win record, that's awesome. But we want the team to enjoy being here and enjoy just getting better and enjoy being around the sport itself.
The winning programs in the MIAA have continuity of coaching staffs, 15, 16 years, both at Hope and even some of the, Adrian, Brett's been there a number of years.
Yep.
Almost had a bit of a revolving door in the last 3 or 4 years. So, from what happened to KZoo, again, coach has been there for, I think, 8, 9 years, maybe.
Yeah, this is year 10 for him being at campus. Yep.
So continuity matters in this league. So do you see yourself there for a while?
Yeah, no, I mean, Alma itself is like a perfect location for me. I have all of my friends from college that live out in Grand Rapids. My whole family still lives in Saline. So it's kind of like right in that middle for me too. So I wanted somewhere to be in Michigan. That's like my number one goal, which I very much lucked out that the job opened up when it did. And this is where I want to be. Like I said, the amount of support is unimaginable, like from a coaching standpoint that I get from the school. So I'd be dumb to want to go somewhere else after seeing like what I'm offered here. So yeah, I see myself being here for a long time, and like I said, I enjoy my colleagues and I enjoy what's happening at Alma. So
the good part is you don't have to work a second job when you're coaching. You get to just coach, which is
exactly. Yeah.
Well, listen, Zach, I wish you the best of luck this opening Saturday, coming up against Detroit Country Day at Country Day when you're going to play University of Michigan Dearborn. And we wish you the best of luck this season. And thanks for taking the time.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Welcome back to the 2024 MIAA Men's Lacrosse Preview. We'll get a chance to spend some time today with Nolo in Kalamazoo at Kalamazoo College with head coach Vince Redco. Vince, you're starting your 10th year, which I think is pretty terrific, coming off a 7-8 year. But I think what's interesting about that is you made the playoffs, the MIAA playoffs for the first time.
We did.
So your momentum is on the upswing. So start talking a little bit about preseason at this point, and we appreciate you taking some time to talk with us.
Yeah, for sure. Appreciate you having me. Preseason for us, a little different this year than it has been in prior years. Without getting too much into the weeds, the NCAA gave us more flexibility with how we account for our time with the team, right? So they set limits for how much time we can make mandatories. So, in the past, you kind of jump right in 6 days a week, and that's fine. This year we had the opportunity to, go a couple days a week for a couple weeks and sort of build into the start of the season. So sort of opposite of like the football training camp model where you just, try and get as much time in as quickly as possible before you compete. We're taking a more gradual approach. So it's been really good. I think it's keeping the guys mentally and physically fresh. We've been a really young team the last couple of years, and this year our junior class is big, and we have some pretty notable guys in that group. And what has been really fun, in particular this year, a little bit last year, but really this year, is with so many returning guys that have played such a big role over their careers, it actually like reduces my coaching load. Like guys are running around when we're scrimmaging, and there's a lot of player-to-player coaching concepts and terms and things that, you normally have to kind of teach all over again each year. Guys just know it from practice number one, right? And it's been awesome. It enables me to focus on some more high-level stuff. And it's really rewarding to see, not just your captain's lead, but all these other guys that have been involved in the program, seeing them do their thing and, hold teammates accountable, hold themselves accountable. And it certainly raised our level. So preseason has been really great.
Culture. It's hard to put the funny part of the Ted Lasso show is that you kind of proved in a fictional way the importance of that intangible that there's nobody that's writing books about it. You can see an X's and O on everything there is related to lacrosse, but not a lot written about how to help kids and understand their heart part process from that standpoint. Do you recognize, and this is kind of a side question, but do you recognize the quality of the MIAA and how it's gone the last 3 or 4 or 5 years to get the national recognition and just how good you guys have become?
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to be pretty ignorant to not recognize it, right? Like, we were the last team to add in the conference, right? Everybody else had a program, even Olivet at that time, and our first season competing was spring of 2016. And my path here, I'm an East Coast guy. I grew up on Long Island, spent all my time coaching between Pennsylvania and New England. I did not intend to come to Michigan and spend much time. The plan was, hey, let's start a program. Let's get a couple years of head coaching experience, and then let's swing back. And then I guess about towards the end of my first year out here, I met my now wife. And, now we got a house, we got 2 kids with a third on the way, and, life happens. So here we are. But, the conference, like I was getting at earlier, the first several years we had some really strong teams at the top, and the depth just wasn't quite there. And transparently, like, we were very not good for several years. And, you had some programs go up and down. Adrian was really good for a while and then took a dip and is now getting really good again. Trine had sort of been consistently building. Calvin had no coaching consistency up until Dave got there, and he's done a phenomenal job. So it's been awesome to see the conference go from sort of very top heavy to now having a really deep slate of teams who I think are all really threatening to one another. And, preseason rankings, I think, came out today. It's always good when the preseason rankings count for essentially nothing because, once April and early May rolls around, it could be anybody in any different place. So it's been great. It's been rewarding. It's been really fun to watch. I think the thing, like I said, I have an East Coast background. I think the thing that gets lost is, the geographic representation of the sport obviously still makes this a very East Coast dominated sport. And I think the Midwest overall doesn't get the respect it deserves. And some of that is just because most of the Midwest teams are all still just playing one another, and there's this bias against them. I really believe, the top teams in the region, a couple teams in our conference for sure, plus some teams from the CCIW, some teams in the OAC, excluding the old school OWUs and Denisons. Those guys have been really good for a long time. But some of these newer programs, if you had them playing a routine slate of East Coast programs, you'd get some favorable results. And it's just a matter of time until we see some more of those matchups. And, it's not, Hope against CNU, who is one of the top 4 teams in the country. You see them play against, someone in the 20 to 50 range. Hope's probably winning that game a lot. And so it's been cool to see that growth.
I think also you've got to look at trends. You think of the MIAA 5 years ago when club teams were still pretty strong.
Yeah.
College club teams. The NAIA were just getting off the ground, the Siennas and some of those programs, Lawrence Techs. They've recognized that there's some value in sports at that level. So Concordia, they put money into those facilities. So a lot of the kids that were playing club sports have drifted to those schools because a lot of cases it's closer to home.
Yep.
There may be some nationally ranked club teams in the Midwest, but certainly half of what was in those days. So I think that changes. So certainly as everybody's kicking up the process, it changes that landscape. But I also think the other thing is you have to recognize that if you go back far enough, and I guess I'm recognizing my age, there are Division III teams that could compete with Denison being a good example. Denison was on everybody's schedule. Ohio State, Division III teams could compete 20 years ago with certainly Division I teams. That's changed. But then the other side of that is you take somebody like Jim Berkman, who we've interviewed at Salisbury, and he'd be the first to tell you there's never been a year in the last decade where he didn't have 1 or 2 or 3 Division I stragglers who came to Salisbury just to compete at that level.
Yeah.
We haven't quite gotten to that point, but I think that's where, I think that's one of the reasons that there's a lot more battleships, pardon the expression, but there are a lot more battleships staying at home and playing at Hope, Kalamazoo, Adrian, Olivet, not Olivet. They don't have a team anymore, but the power level is really switched. And so the question is, are you recruiting a different kid now that you might have 5 years ago?
I don't know if we're recruiting a different kid necessarily. I suppose we are to a certain extent. We've always really targeted guys who are really academically motivated. A big part of what we want our team to be here are guys who, I mean, no doubt, like a big reason guys come to Kalamazoo is the fact that we're a small school in a medium-sized city with a big state school across the street, and there's a social draw to that. But, we want guys that are really mindful of who they are in our community. And those two things have been the same from day one. That's always been a part of who we were. I think what's changed is, maybe this is what you're getting at, our first few years, we got guys who checked those first two boxes. Really great students, academically motivated, great people. They were pretty average athletes and lacrosse players. And as we grow and get better, we are still really committed to our academics and who we are as people, but we're definitely getting some better athletes and lacrosse players too. Some of those guys we recruited in the early days, they did go and play club. I mean, there's a bunch of guys who I think could have been really high level Division III players. And, they were like, yeah, you know what? I want to go play club at Michigan State, or just be, a student at Michigan, because that's who we overlap with most for applications, just based on our academic profile. So I think we've had some more success recruiting those guys as our team gets better. And yeah, the athletic profile is raised a little bit too, for sure.
Giving everything equal with a player. I've only asked this. I haven't asked any of this question to anybody yet in the previews, but I'm curious because I think you're a pretty cerebral coach, at least from what I know and conversations that we've had. Given the opportunity between athleticism and brain power, do you take the brainiac over the athlete, everything being equal, or do you pick the athlete?
Yeah.
And you don't get both. You get one or the other at this point.
Yeah. No, I get it. It's a hard question to answer. The nature, again, of like coaching at Kalamazoo College, we have to take the brainiac because we have an admissions floor. Like, there's just a certain level, there's a certain academic tier that we can't touch, right? Athleticism is great because it's hard to teach, right? Like, you can make a kid a little bit faster and stronger, but at the end of the day, there's a genetic component that you're not going to move the needle on too much.
Right.
So, although like the longer I do this, the less I coach, like kind of specific X's and O's and skills, and the more I coach, philosophy and IQ and like communication. We just spend way more of our time focusing on that stuff because I think that, the athletic and skill playing field is pretty level, but I think we can really move the needle in how connected our guys are, how situationally aware they are. And so, yeah, I guess like the brainiac, everything else equal, sure, I probably lean towards the brainiac, but it's pretty hard. Some of the guys that we have now, we have an attackman who was an all-conference guy last year, Logan Gillis, as a sophomore. He's 6'4", 6'5", and runs like a deer, and like he just is able to do things other guys can't because of those two things. So it's hard to land on one side of that coin.
I use this statement all the time. God did not create us all equal. If he did, I'd have hair. So
Yeah.
it's just, I get that part. What part of Long Island?
Yeah, so I grew up in Stony Brook, which is like the Three Village area.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. If you haven't been through that part of the world, it's like being up north in northern Michigan. It really is. It's forested, and it's
Yeah.
Long Island. I'm old enough to remember that a Long Island attackman, I've made this reference several times, a Long Island attackman was certainly something that was coveted by almost every team. For some reason, Long Island put out attackmen that other parts of the country didn't.
Yeah.
And it was conversely Central New York, being an old like plastic kid, like Central New York was, you look for defensemen there.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what that would have been about. I think like, I grew up, I got into lacrosse by sheer geographic luck. My family is not like a big sports family. My dad bought a house in Stony Brook, and that's, the high school I went to is one of the most storied programs in the country, Ward Melville High School. I played for Joe Kuzo, who at the time was the winningest high school coach in the country. still, I'm sure, in the top 5, but I think like Mike Messier, I think passed him up. He's 3. Yeah.
Great.
So, and like, again, like nobody chose that. I just wound up there and I was surrounded by lacrosse. And my best friend was like, hey, man, his dad played at Hopkins and won some national championships there in the 80s. And he was like, hey, like, you got to start playing lacrosse. And so, I think for like, especially Long Island attackmen, you are truly born with a stick in your hand and you're playing from, kindergarten through high school. And those guys that like the amount of reps that they have in making decisions and making reads and, again, getting back to like the IQ part of the game, they just have so much experience with that. That's the thing that separates them from the kid who is maybe physically gifted, but just can't make the same reads, hasn't done it as many times. I'm sure that's where some of that, comes back to.
What position did you play?
I was a defenseman.
So here's my question. Are you in your mind as a coach, are you an offensive guy or defensive guy?
Yeah, definitely used to be a defensive guy, and I am full throttle offense now. Like I have had a polar opposite shift.
Okay. I asked that question of the Calvin coach, of Dave at Calvin, and he's an old goalie.
Yep.
And he was trying to put both feet in both worlds. And I said, no, and you're laying in bed at night, are you either an offensive or a defensive guy? And most coaches are not special team coaches. They're offense or defense, and they hope like hell they can find a goalie coach. It's one of those things.
Yeah.
And Dave kind of said, no, I guess I have to, in the back of my brain, I gotta go from a defensive standpoint. So
Yeah. Yeah, I grew up playing defense, and my first, all my assistant coaching stops was as, sort of an assistant, defensive coordinator role. And my first few years here, I focused on the defense and hired an assistant who more focused on the offense. And in the middle of the 2018 season, we just decided to make a flip because we didn't have a great start. And we were like, you know what, let's just change coordinator roles and see if our voices resonate differently with the two different groups. And I have not looked back since then. I have so much fun coaching offense. It honestly, like it is, I think it's great to have so much defensive experience because it's so easy to think about as a defensive coordinator, what kept you up at night and like what was hard to coach your guys to cover and what was hard as an individual player to guard and like how did offensive players frustrate you, and you build that stuff into your offense. And it's like, I don't know, maybe it's a little bit of revenge for some some of those prior years.
you open your season this coming Saturday, am I mistaken?
Yeah, we play at Lawrence Tech on Saturday.
Okay. Are you playing outside or are you playing a country day?
We were supposed to play a country day late Friday night, and I called up Lawrence Tech on Monday and said, hey, like, why don't we move this outside? It's going to be 50 degrees. We might as well enjoy this. So yeah, we moved it outside.
I can't tell you how many coaches we've talked to in the last week that have just, I'm a ski coach in the wintertime and I'm crying.
Yeah.
But conversely, some of our kids have been outside doing some of our lacrosse stuff that we start up in about 3.5 weeks. 50 degrees. I'm looking outside right now in the sunshine and it's 51 degrees. So
this is hard not to like.
One of those things you got to take advantage of. Last question, and it's not really a question. Yeah, MIAA is blessed with having some of the best sports facilities. If you look at Hope and certainly Albion and the rest of it, I don't think anybody can top what you guys have at Kalamazoo. The sports complex that you're part of and that whole premise that's out there is pretty terrific. And that was obviously a commitment by your administration to make athletics a vital part of the university landscape.
No doubt. Yeah, we are very fortunate. Facilities are great. Locker room is great. Field is great. The thing that I think gets less attention just because it's inside and it's kind of tucked away, people don't see it as much, but we highlight a lot. We have a really awesome varsity weight room. We put that in, I think, 2018 academic year. And on top of that, the school has invested in a group called Athletic Mentors, which they're just like a local sport performance group. They do corporate wellness for Stryker. They do sport performance for the K-Wings, the minor league affiliate here in town. So we get some really good benefit from that. Not just having the the physical space and the physical tools, but having the the human resources and the know-how. That started up about 2 years ago, and I think that's really changed our guys a lot too. Just giving them year-round access to top of the line knowledge and training opportunities.
And the Coach Redco coaching tree has begun. I talked earlier this morning with Zach Cameron, who's now the head coach at Alma.
Yep.
And he was with you for 7 years and took a lot of lessons from that. So you must be doing things in the right order.
Like I said, we really focus on our people, and we've come a long way. We are certainly, way more competitive. I'm really proud of where we are now, but and the things that we've done. But we have some big competitive goals in front of us. You mentioned you're going to chat with the NAIA guys. Ty McGuire, who's head coach at Concordia Ann Arbor, he was here for our first 3 years as a program. He was absolutely invaluable to the start of the thing here. And he's done a really incredible job taking them from, I think maybe they were like a third-year program when he took over, to now they're in the NAIA top 10, legitimately competing for an NAIA national championship. You'll have a really fun conversation with him. He's awesome. So, you just take it one day at a time, coach with a lot of love, and do what you think is right. And, at the end of the day, you just try and get a little bit better.
Vince, best of luck this season, and thanks for your time.
Awesome. Thanks, Greg.
Welcome back to the 2024 MIAA lacrosse preview, men's lacrosse preview. We're talking with Adrian head coach Brett Wetzel, entering his 6th season as the head coach, one of the good guys in the league. Brett, appreciate you taking the time. Coming off a 9-8 season, things are on the uprise for Adrian. I think you've done a great job of recruiting. You open the 17th against Ohio Northern coming up, and so obviously you guys have been practicing for a little bit of time. Let's talk about preseason, how things look for this year.
Yeah, we've been practicing. I think we're a couple weeks now. I think we're on practice 19 today. I think the guys are getting a little antsy, a little tired of beating each other up, but we've been kind of talking a little bit about the kind of some of the experiences they've been going through as they've been growing up, and big crew of juniors this year. A lot of our top guys are juniors, and they've been working together and playing together now for 3 years going on. So, to kind of work with them through that experience and kind of manage the expectations that we've got going on this year has been a lot of fun. And we've run into some challenges, of course, this spring, but it's been exciting to kind of work through that with these guys and really, set the table for what we expect to be a pretty good spring for us as we kind of look to take that next step.
That next step includes a better record, certainly, but do you think this is a better team than last year's?
Yeah, I think it certainly includes a better record. I think but it certainly includes, better performances in some of those games against top teams. Obviously, we play the likes of Kenyon. I know Albion's playing Kenyon as well. Kenyon's a top 25 team right now going into the preseason. So, while we may not maybe win every single one of those games, we want to be able to perform and show we can play with those top teams. But I do think, some of our holes last year, we had some holes that our opponents were definitely able to exploit, and we did I think a pretty nice job of filling those holes. And we've got some guys coming in, some new guys, new blood, some good first years, and some guys coming up off the bench that are looking to kind of fill some of those roles. And I'm pretty excited to kind of see what that'll look like for those guys jumping into those spots right away. Some as young guys, first years, transfers, but it should be a pretty exciting season for us this spring.
The continuity of being around for 6 years, the league in general has had this. We've asked this question of all the coaches. You've got some continuity now. You've been there 6 years. You've seen some success. Does it make it easier to recruit now that you've had that sort of name recognition and been around a little bit? And then the second part of the question is the MIAA in the last 5 years has certainly earned its national reputation. And we've kind of attributed part of that to be a stronger NAIA program where a lot of kids might have played club programs not developing as well. So if you look at the league itself, it's got some unbelievable players in it, and the reputation nationally has come up a lot in the last. You got to come prepared every night to play in the MIAA, as they say.
Yeah, for sure. To answer the first part there, is it easier to recruit? I would never say it's easier to recruit, especially in a league like this. I mean, you know, you can talk to kids from all over the state, all over the region, and they're getting contacted and they're having conversations with Albion, Kalamazoo, Adrian, Alma. It doesn't matter where they fall in the league standings. I think right now we're seeing a lot of young men want to find the right opportunity. And for some guys, that's, going to a place like Albion at the top of the league. Some guys, that's going to a place where they can make an impact and feel like they can, help a program get better. That's certainly the spot we were in a few years ago when we were down at the bottom of the league. And, I think, again, like I said, I would never say it gets any easier. Everyone's recruiting everybody. And again, these young men are just looking for the right fit and the perfect spot for them. And I commend them for that. And that's something we talk about in recruiting quite a bit, is finding the right fit for the next 4 years. For some guys, it's academics. Some guys are more athletically inclined. It's about finding that right fit. So I would never say recruiting gets easier. That's kind of one of the fun things about recruiting, is it's always a challenge and it's always tough, and you're always recruiting, against different schools, different coaches, recruiting from different high schools, from different coaches. So I think that's one of the fun things about this job, is that recruiting aspect and that recruiting challenge, I guess I would say. Like you said, right, the MIAA, it has been getting a lot more recognition. I think when you watch guys like Jace Conley coming through the league, Michael Mann up at Hope, you got top guys that have 2-3 years of All-American status. They're going out and playing the likes of Denison and going on the road and really challenging themselves, challenging their programs. I think those guys are kind of helping to set the stage for what the MIAA can be in a couple years even. All these leagues have to build up, right? The NCAC didn't start at the very top, right? They've been steadily building up with Denison, Kenyon, Ohio Wesleyan getting better and improving. And I think that's what we're seeing here. We're just still, talk about how long the NCAC's been around, and the Kenyons and Denisons, they've been around since the 70s and even earlier. In some cases, we as a league have been around for, we're only looking at 15 years now, 13, 14 years, somewhere around there. So we're still a pretty young league in the grand scheme of things. So I think when you see some of the things we've been doing and some of the success our programs have been able to have, Adrian at the beginning of the league, when we were 2010 to 2014, when we were at the top, and then Albion and Hope, what they've done here over the last 9 years, it's been really impressive stuff. So I think it's definitely a league to be reckoned with when you talk about the Midwest. And I'm really just grateful to be in an opportunity where we can compete to be one of those teams to represent the league in that national tournament every year.
If you look back 20 years, 25 years, Division III, there were some Division III programs. You mentioned Denison. Those programs can compete with Division I programs. That's probably not true anymore, with the exception of maybe a Salisbury, where Jim Berkman will tell you that, there's usually 2 or 3 stragglers from Division I who came home to play in that kind of program, guys who've had that ability. He had last year, he had the kid from Hopkins, who was the number 3 scorer, slide back to a Division III school. You'd be happy to take Michigan's number 3 scorer and slide him into Adrian. You'd be, your offense would improve dramatically just because of the premise. But as the league gets better, are you recruiting a different athlete than you might have 6 years ago when you started?
Yeah, I think certainly there's some more interest, and I think more interest maybe from some of those top athletes. But I think too, what's interesting is more top athletes from like out of state. I think there's some more recognition of the opportunities that we offer here, that maybe some young men from Illinois or Colorado might want to jump at those opportunities, right? That maybe they weren't aware of. And I think that's been what's also been pretty interesting to see, the some of that shift in rosters. So you look at Hope, Calvin, Adrian. I think there's a little bit more of a national vibe with Illinois coming up, and we have a couple Colorado guys on the roster. It's been interesting to see that. So I think certainly as the league's gotten better and as our program in particular has gotten better, I think reaching out and spreading the wings a little bit and bringing in some of the top talent from out of state too has been, again, a fun little challenge for us in recruiting to not just say, oh, well, they're from Colorado. We're not going to get them. No big deal. It's been a fun challenge to try to go out and attract some of those top guys from out of state, and even from a couple Canadian guys. A couple of our top players are Canadian guys. So that's been a fun little challenge there in recruiting, but definitely fun to see the league get some of that recognition and get some of that out of state talent here.
We've had a couple questions we've asked all the coaches, and I'll start with the easiest of one. If you're recruiting somebody, physicality or cerebral?
Give me the cerebral guy.
Okay.
Give me the little guy that can, move off ball or knows how to find some good space on the offensive end. I was never a big guy when I played. I was a defenseman, and I was all of 5'10", 165, and playing close defense, playing LSM. Either one. Like give me the cerebral guy that knows how to get it done with what he's got. You see a lot of big dudes, big defensemen. We're preparing for a scrimmage tomorrow, and we're looking at a couple big defensemen, big attackmen. I think that's great, but if you don't know what to do with it, like what are we really working with? I'm more about the cerebral guy. I want the IQ guy. I want the guy that can make high IQ plays.
You mentioned you're a defenseman. If you had to lay in a bed at night, are you an offensive guy or a defensive guy?
I heard you ask Dave Hoger this question.
Yeah.
And you had to fight him on this one a little bit, I know.
I did.
But I can understand his perspective and where he's coming from, because once you coach a little bit of both, you start kind of wanting to put your hands on different things, and then you're thinking about the offense one night, then you're thinking about the defense the next. I will say we just brought in a new assistant coach, and it's allowed me to move back to the defensive side of the ball. And I was just talking to another one of our coaches about it, and it's kind of reinstilled some vigor in me and the excitement, enthusiasm. There's just something about going out there and wanting to stop goals and prevent goals that just gets me going. So definitely, I would say the defensive side of things.
I asked the question of all the coaches because everybody. It turns out 1 out of 7. You gave me a pretty close answer to the truth. You can't only be one or the other. I understand you have, as a head coach, you've got to cover it. You got to be special teams. Mm-hmm. But I was a goalie who I'm an offensive guy. I only think about offense because that's just where my brain goes. Mm-hmm. So when you're sleeping, and that was kind of my question to Dave, because when Dave answered the question, it was kind of splitting hairs and giving me the head coaching answer. Take the hat off, and what does your heart tell you? That's really a different answer, and it doesn't change anything. I was just trying to get rid of the cliche and get down to the premise from that standpoint. So you open against Ohio Northern. Last question. What are you really excited about this season early on? And what is it that you have some apprehension in terms of your team? What are some things you're going to have to work on?
I'm really excited to see these guys that have been starting since they were freshmen. Again, like I said, we brought in a huge class a couple years ago. They're juniors now, and they've been a lot of them have been starting since they were freshmen. They've started every game, played in every game. I'm excited for them and excited to watch them take the next step. And we've been talking a lot, I think, over the last few months in particular, about just that growth and what that next step is for them. On the field, off the field, all aspects, right? But in particular for us, and for the sake of this conversation, the on the field piece for them to take that next step. And they've been watching some of these guys that have been All-Americans and have been the top players in the league as as they were juniors and seniors and take that next step. I'm excited to watch them embrace it and see how they're able to manage it and from going from watching a guy like Jace Conley, who was a 2 or 3 time player of the year in the league offensively, to watch a guy like Mike Jonas maybe try to take that mantle and see if he's ready to go ahead and say, I want to be that guy. There's an opening, right? There's an opening at that top. So I think that's the most exciting part for me. It's a great group of dudes. It's a great group of guys, great group of young men. And to watch them kind of grow and mature here through this spring will be a lot of fun. And I think it does start with Ohio Northern and a really good test, a team that beat us last year, but we felt like maybe we definitely should have performed better and maybe we should have even won the game. I think the guys are just really, really excited about that. When it comes to some of the apprehension, I don't know if it's apprehension is the right word, but again, when we talk about that growing up and that maturity, I want to see us also, continue to develop and become great players, but that leadership side of things, right? We still need to find and fill that void, I think, on that leadership aspect. We filled some holes in terms of what we can do strategically and technically on the field. Well, what can we do leadership wise? How are we going to help us when we're, in those tight moments, in a tight game? Let's say we do lose a tight game. How are we going to respond? How do our leaders and how do our veterans help us in the locker room when coach isn't around? I think those are the moments that I think can really carry a team in a tough game. When you have those guys that can help you when coach isn't around to give you all the answers. And I think those are going to be the biggest points. Again, it all kind of points back to growing up and maturity. But I'm super excited to see what these guys are able to do. They want it. They've talked about it. They've set their goals, and it's going to be really exciting to see what these guys are able to do. From Mike Jonas to Cam Reed, Sam Spangler in the cage. We've got a lot of guys that are just ready to get going and really just want to get playing. So I'm excited.
Good. Well, the guys that we've talked to all the coaches. This is our last interview for the preview. There's a lot of guys pointed and looked at maybe Adrian's back. So we'll see, and we'll certainly follow that premise. It would be cool to see another team up there and, a very competitive league. And so we appreciate you taking the time. One of the great coaches in the MIAA, and best of luck this season, and appreciate the moment you spent with us.
Absolutely, Greg. Thanks so much. Appreciate all you're doing for the MIAA here with this podcast. It's awesome.
Welcome back to the MIAA 2024 Men's Lacrosse Preview. We're talking with what is the Cadillac of coaches in the MIAA, Mike Shannels, the most successful coach that I think the league has seen. Mike, in your 20th year at Hope College, 13 of them as an NCAA program, 112-52, but more importantly, you've developed Hope into and certainly in the MIAA into a national level program. And I appreciate you taking the time. You're starting up on the 17th again, and you've had some chance to spend a little bit of time lately with your team. With the weather being great outside, thank you for taking the time and talk a little bit about the early part of the season.
Yeah, it's I don't want to jinx it, so I'll knock on wood, but the weather has been extraordinary. We've got a clear green field, which is not normally the case. Usually it looks more like an ice rink than a field this time of year, climbing over snowbanks and so forth. So we've been really fortunate to get out there and get rolling. And then we took a risk and scheduled Illinois Wesleyan for a home game. It's going to be by far the earliest home game we've ever had. But hopefully we'll get lucky and get that in. So pretty pumped about that. So we start out with a tough slate of out of conference games for sure.
Better than last year, about the same. Give me some expectations.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the first thing is we've got a ton of talent and depth that we've not always had before. So that's what stands out about this group. Time will tell whether we're able to put that together. But we've got also a nice mix of, these guys who are seniors for us. They got a ton of time and experience when they were freshmen, and they've been the core rock solid group for us all the way through. And then we've got a whale of a sophomore class that got a bunch of experience last year. So we're playing well, we're playing fast. They've just got to learn to play together. We got to go out there and get after people this year.
Conference, not conference champs. You were league champs. You were post. Let me have to cut this. I understand because
tournament champs. Yeah.
Tournament champs.
Yeah.
MIAA tournament champs last year.
Correct.
Mike, does it make it easier when you're winning to recruit? Does it make it an easier step to you than you might otherwise have if you were 3-11?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So, we saw a huge jump when we switched from MCLA to NCAA. Just a completely different group of people that we could talk to at that point in time. But the principles of coming to go to school here, which is the big thing, those are the same. So that's the same as 20 years ago. It's like, you got to want to come here and study. You're going to get a wraparound service in terms of like that you're going to be seen as a person, and you're going to grow. And so that's not for everybody. I went to Hope, and when I was a freshman, I didn't get it. I was like, these people are in my face, they were able to push me, transform me. So it's the same experience for these guys today. And so that's really the biggest filter, right? This is the right type of person to come here and get the work done. And then the guys call practice recess. So it's like, that's the fun part of their day. But what makes it fun is it's tremendously competitive and growth oriented process. So these guys coming in as freshmen, watching them develop and grow into seniors is such a treat. As you know, as a coach, it's just the best part of the job, I think.
The continuity that you provided, Hope, the 20 years and certainly the 13 years at the NCAA level, also gives you sort of a structural process that you don't have to keep changing from year to year or rebuilding from scratch. I say this on your behalf. You're also one of the nicer guys that I've ever met in the sport. So the reputation of having a coach that's, really, most coaches are behind you. I'm not suggesting they're not, but listen, there's not everybody's likes their Uncle Pete, and some people do. And my point to that is it helps the transition, the promotion, if you will, of the MIAA, not only in terms of talent, but in terms of reputation, comes from, if you look at the top of the MIAA, the coaches like yourself at 16 years, Jake's been at Albion for a long time. It certainly has to help the premise, because you look at Jim Beekman at Salisbury as an example, and it's an established program. So that's got to help a little bit.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt about that. And we have a great group of men in the league. And I really enjoy working with them. And that's the way I look at it. Just the opportunity to compete against one another is a bonus too. But the majority of the time we spend, we're out on the road, or we're in some strange city recruiting, working an event, and being able to go out and have dinner or to sit on the sideline and have a conversation with these guys. These are really good friends and good people that we get to work with. So that's fun. And I appreciate you saying nice things about me. Clearly, we never played hockey against each other back in the day. I have two different reputations, depending on who you talk to. But no, I think it is important to grow the game, to be a good ambassador, to spread the love. This is so much fun to be kind of on the frontier of lacrosse and watch it grow. So from where, when I started coaching in 1992 to now, it's a little bit beyond wildest dreams. And then to be at Hope this whole time as well as a player, and then to watch the program go. So tremendously psyched that I got to be a part of it. This is a really cool thing that's happening in our game right now.
With football just ending and the Harbaugh name going all over the place, from assistant coaches to pro coaches to college coaches, you lost one of your members of your coaching staff with the last name of Channels, I believe, from last year to this year. Am I correct on that?
No, Nick is back with us.
Okay.
So that's good. That's a good thing. So he's takes care of our goalies and our special teams, and just a nice presence for us to have. And by far the youngest member of the by far the youngest member of the staff. So he can relate a little bit more to the guys being more close to their age for sure. So he'll translate for us older coaches a little bit.
Mike, when you're standing back, kind of observing when practice is going on, you see Nicky coaching. What goes through your head?
It's a little bit of two things. So yesterday it was funny. He was kind of really energetic, let's put it that way, and I was like, oh wow, that's like a little bit looking in a mirror. I'm different now. I have a different role, different responsibility, different headspace, trying to maintain our focus, our mission, our balance in practice. So I don't get the luxury of really turning the screws like he was doing. It was a beautiful thing to see. And then the other thing is just his experiences, being able to play both Division III and Division I, having seen rubber coming at him that hard, as a goaltender, what that experience is like. And he brings a sense of calm, and focus and preparation that is a huge, tremendous asset for us. So it's pretty cool, just to say the least. So
that's a great answer from a coach. Now let me ask you to put your dad hat on.
yeah,
I've coached with my own kid, and when I've had a chance to ask coaches who have children that are on their staffs, I ask it because I'm asking you as a dad in the back of your head. Put the coaching hat away. What goes through your head? It's got to be obviously pride, but what else goes through your head?
Well, I think we just sort of assumed he'd end up in Montana as a fishing guide or something like that for a while. So Lisa and I are so thankful that he's close to home and we get to see him, regularly. And yeah, but both of our boys have made us tremendously proud. So
okay, that's the right answer, as it say.
Yeah.
All right, just a couple quick things on the league. Last year, you play Albion, you lose by 9. You turn around and play them in the finals of the tournament and beat them by 9. That's an 18-goal swing.
Yeah.
Did you not show up to the first game? Was just one of those weird things that they had a good game, bad game, or did you do that much improvement?
Well, I think to give credit to Albion, that was an absolute wagon of a team. So when we had struggles in that first game, what happens when you play them is they capitalize on those things and it avalanches, and it's very difficult to claw back in a situation like that. And then on the flip side of that, you could have a 27-goal lead against Albion and not ever feel safe until the last second ticks off the clock because they're so explosive. So, this from being on the sideline versus watching a game on television or something like that. Oh, they got this in the back, and you never feel like that when you're in the moment. So tremendous respect for them and their program. And, I think the first game was a combination of being banged up a little bit in a weird way, and we've gone back and forth with Albion like this. The overdog doesn't always have the advantage in that game. The underdog has proven to be, pretty dangerous. So we were fortunate to be the underdog really coming into the final game. And that's a kind of a strange way of looking at it, but it's such a mindset game, such an emotional game for our guys. It's just not like every other game for us. And so we have to deal with that, manage that. So, but that tells you the volatility of that game, right? So it could go either way and it could be big. Now, typically it hasn't been a big thing. So we got our absolute butt kicked last year by Oberlin. And that's the first time that had happened. Like if we had lost a game, it was a goal or two. It was close prior to that. So just getting smoked by those guys and then getting smoked by Albion again really reset our priorities and really reset our meter in terms of like what we were expecting to do, our style of play. And it was a lot of fun the second time around, but not so much the first time around.
Only coaches would find value in a butt whooping. I swear to God, I believe that to be true.
Yeah, what are our options? You know what I mean? We can cry about it, or you can accept it quickly and get back to work the next day. And so I am tremendously proud of our team. We had a ring ceremony in the fall, and I told him that. I said, have a bunch of rings, but been a part of a lot of different squads. But in terms of their growth and what they did to improve and how they sucked it up. You know, and
Yeah.
I think in the world today, sometimes they're like, God, these kids are soft and they're not very tough like we were and all that kind of stuff. These kids are tough, man. They work really, really hard. They're very, very focused. I'm so proud of them, you know, and couldn't be more excited for them, you know.
Every time I think I know something about the sport, I'm researching this a little bit for you. You play Christopher Newport University. I'd never heard of the school.
Yeah, yeah.
It's in Virginia, so obviously, you know, it's a hotbed for lacrosse, to say the least. Another Division III school like yourself, and like I said, are they a perennial power in lacrosse?
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's a beautiful campus. It's actually the reason you haven't heard of it is relatively new
Okay.
college. And so, and a relatively new program, obviously in a hotbed, they're actually a public school. So they've got a huge advantage in that hotbed area, but coach has done a tremendous job with those guys down there. And it was a absolute honor to be on the same field as those guys. Unfortunately, we felt like that in the first half. You know, we needed to honor them less and play harder, but we worked our way into that game, but we couldn't afford to come off to a slow start like that. But you know, we took a lot of things away from that, and you know, that hardest gap to close is that gap between, you know, pretty good and awesome, right? And so we're pretty good, and on any given day, you know, we're dangerous. We need to be more consistent, more focused, and the guys really did a deep dive this fall and paid close attention to how we work and what we can do to prepare ourselves. And then the other part is you can't prepare yourself for that. That's a new thing. Straight up, it's a new thing. If you told me that we were going to fly to Virginia to play in the NCAA tournament, I wouldn't have guessed that that's where we would have been. So we've been to Rochester and we've been to Illinois Wesleyan, and I assumed we would be not going there. So that wasn't even really on our radar. So it was popped up on our radar real quick, and you know, we did okay, but this is a new different level of you know, intensity for us, and that's great. It's a great opportunity for us to learn what it looks like to play at that level.
Is Christopher Newport some kind of famous tobacco farmer, or was actually a Christopher Newport? I'm just curious.
There is an actual Christopher Newport, yeah, and he was one of the sea captains down
Okay.
there. It's pretty cool. They got the campus is all the same vintage, which is really interesting. It kind of looks like Disney World. It's beautiful. Everything is all buffed out. It's a great place. So we're actually going back down to their area for spring break. Stay at the beach a little bit. We got some surfers on our team, so
That's good. It's a little bit like Purdue, where I think everything with Purdue was built by somebody who built prisons. It all looks, it's just so anesthetic. At least I'm a Spartan, so at least you come off the campus. There's a bit of you know, it looks a little different. But when you go to Purdue for the first time, you're kind of shocked at how boring it is because the way the buildings, and you have no difference if it's a food service, a dorm, or you know, the humanities building. You don't know. But you know, last couple questions. I know you play goaltender, and I know you were an attack. So either you were split personalities or you were a goaltender because they didn't have one. But here's my question. You're laying in bed at night, and this is a question we've asked all the coaches. You an offensive guy in your head or you a defensive guy?
yeah, that's a great question. So I'm an offensive guy. Yep. There's no doubt about it. So I was a center in hockey and very aggressive in all the other sports that I played, you know, nose to the goal oriented type dude in my nature. But being goaltender was a really important, you know, job. You know, on my team needed me to do that 1 year. And so I learned a ton from doing that. And I learned a different perspective on the game. So it's really good for a shooter, you know, someone who's going to be a shooter to play goaltender because you know what things look like before they happen, basically, you know, and growing up a hockey player, you know, everything has to happen before it happens almost if it's going to happen together. And so, you know, having that sense of anticipation, you know, being able to catch the ball cleanly, finish, you know, so I think it was not the plan, but it was weirdly helpful. to do that, and that shift of perspective has been really good for me as a coach as well. So I do think a lot. Coach basketball for 30 years, and so I think defense and transition first when I'm game planning. So as a coach, that helps me conceive of the game, and that's the foundation. Defense and rebounding, right? The foundation of any successful program over time. You have to have those fundamental things. And so our lacrosse team is built the same way.
You almost got an A on that question because you real quickly said offense. Every other coach told me, it's a combination. And my question really was, when you're laying in bed, and you're not thinking about transition, you're not thinking about the whole thing. Are you an offensive? You can only be one or the other. You can't be both. You have to coach a lot of different things. And I say that because definitively I could care less about defense. I coach offense, and whoever my defensive coach is loves me because I don't put my nose anywhere near the building, So you started out with the right answer, but you could see it morph into the coach.
Yeah.
It's not, I'm picking. It's just, I thought that was interesting. And then
you're all good.
The other theme question, as a recruiter, physicality or cerebral? You get your choice, one or the other.
Yeah, physicality, like athleticism, speed, power, the ability to sacrifice. That characteristic of what was that? What would I be more proud of, a ground ball or a goal? I'd be more proud of a ground ball and being able to make something happen for my team, and so yeah, physicality.
Okay.
Final
Mike,
answer. I won't elaborate. You're getting the philosophy major coming out in me a little bit here. So I keep it concise. I can do that.
We're trying to also give some insight to, a little bit about humanity of coaches and just not asking the general questions.
I love it.
From a preview standpoint. So that's all we're trying to do. I just want to appreciate you taking the time, and hopefully this will be up in the next 3 or 4 hours. Have a great season. I hope we will come along your trail a little, check in a little bit. And Mike, it's a pleasure. It's always fun to talk to you.
Yeah, I always enjoy talking to you as well. Thanks so much for having us.
Want to thank all the coaches in the MIAA for spending some time with us over the last few days, kind of giving us a preview of the upcoming season. And if you're not aware, the MIAA is one of the better Division III lacrosse leagues, men's lacrosse leagues in the country. And I think they've earned that reputation. It's a good, solid place to land. The universities and the colleges have great educational institutions. And I think it's a tribute to the coaches who have been around for a while in some cases. And just a really good preview. We look forward to a very competitive season. So we'll keep up with the teams of the MIAA this year, and we hope you enjoy that. And so for all the guys in back and for the guys in the MIAA, thanks for your time. We'll see you next week.